Hey there. So we're trying something a little bit different this time. I've kind of moved some things around. And I'm also using a different camera. I just recently bought, this is a Sony A6400. I got it mostly for photography because I like doing photography. If you've watched the channel for a while, you might know that. I think I've made videos talking about that in the past. But mostly I do film photography. And this is my first digital camera that's actually nice. And I thought, you know what? I have the camera. Might as well try to use it for an ASMR video. And so that's what we're doing. I can see myself, which I normally can't when I use my phone to record videos. And I'm finding it hard to look at the lens rather than at myself. So hopefully I'm looking at the lens so that it actually looks like I'm looking at you rather than above you. But that'll just take some getting used to. But I hope it looks nice. We'll see when I'm editing it if it looks nice. It's a manual focus lens that I'm using right now because I have a bunch of old vintage lenses that I use with my film cameras. And I just bought an adapter for this camera because lenses are expensive. So if I can make use of all the ones that I already have, then that's nice. And using them is fun, actually. I do like the manual nature of them. Although I do have some autofocus lenses now that I've gotten, and it is very convenient. But I am not using those for this just because they're not the greatest lenses of all time. Honestly, I think just in terms of raw picture quality, these vintage lenses, at least some of them, are a good bit better. So that's why I'm using them. We'll see how it turns out. It might not be perfectly in focus. I've got it opened up pretty much all the way because I want, that shallow depth of field. But again, we'll see how it looks. This is all experimental, right? I'm also just holding the Blue Yeti, which is really not ideal. And that's just because I don't have a lot of room to put it somewhere else, to sit it down. It's not really a microphone that's meant to be held. And I guess I shouldn't be moving it around like this because then it's going to sound like I'm moving all around you. So I'll try my best to just keep it forward, but we'll see. Again, it's a very experimental setup. But yes, it's been a little while. Hopefully also I don't unplug it because this the plug for the Blue Yeti is not very secure. So it could easily come unplugged and that would ruin the audio. So I'll try not to do that. But it's been a little while. Last video I made was a little over a month ago, I think. Maybe even close to 2 months at this point. I was working on a video for another channel that has come out since then. I intended to make a video for this channel talking about working on that video much sooner than I have, and I just never kind of got around to it. Honestly, full disclosure, I've been a little bummed lately. Found it hard to be motivated to do videos of any kind, really. After working really hard on that video for that channel, it did not perform very well, and it just kind of put a damper on my mood. I won't deny that. But regardless, I'm here, and I'm making this video. But yes, I did finally release that video. I worked very hard on it. I'll link it in the description of this video. I doubt very many people from this channel will be interested in that video, but, if you want to check it out, go ahead. But yeah, things have been all right for me. I did get this from my brother. It's a little parrot guy. It's not in the same style of bird. I hope you don't mind the chair squeaking too much. As the other birds that you've seen on the channel long ago in the past. They don't show up in the videos nearly as much these days. But these are there's a long line of birds in this style. And I do like these quite a lot. This one is not in the same style, but it is still very cool. It's a little parrot. It has this elastic band that I think I'm going to cut off because it's meant to like go around your arm so that the parrot can sit on your shoulder, which is kind of cool. But I don't do that. I don't need that really. And I don't like how it looks just like with it there. So I'm probably going to cut that off. I just haven't gotten around to that yet. But I do think the parrot looks very cool. And he's got little arms or wings, I guess, they can flap kind of. So that's cool. Very cool little bird from my brother. That was for my birthday, among other things. But yeah, I recently got a comment on one of my videos from a longtime viewer and a longtime commenter asking me what my thoughts were on the Battlefield 6 Season 4 update, which just recently released. So I figured, why not make a video talk about that a bit? Because why not? I like to talk about video games. That's what I do on this channel a lot. Actually, before we get into that, I will say there was a period of time where it felt like every video I was making was a ramble. This was years ago. But I recently went back through a lot of my videos because another person commented asking for a very specific moment from one of my videos. They wanted to know what video contained a moment where I was looking at a Q-tip box and I was describing the barcode. And so I was saying like one thin white line, thick black line, thin white line, thick, that sort of thing. And I vividly remember doing that. I vividly remember that video, but I could not for the life of me find it. And I went through like every single video on my channel. So I don't know what happened to that video. But in the process of doing that, I was looking through a lot of my old videos and I was surprised to find that there wasn't really, I've done a lot of rambles, sure. But like I said, there was a period of time where it felt like I was doing a ramble every single time. Like it was just ramble after ramble after ramble in terms of the video uploads. And I was surprised that there wasn't as long of a string of rambles at any point as it felt like there should have been. But I do a lot of rambles regardless. And I would say of my rambles, talking about video games is probably one of the most common topics. But I've rambled about lots of things. But today we're going to ramble about Battlefield because, again, I like video games. So why not? In terms of the Season 4 update, I think it's quite good, actually. I still have problems with the game in terms of like its overall game design. I'm pretty bummed that they didn't really try anything incredibly new with Battlefield 6. I think that's 100% my biggest complaint, is just that the game is very generic. It's probably the most generic first-person shooter of all time. The Season 4 update fixes that a little bit, but really not much at all, because at its core, the game mode is really where you want to see a lot of the innovation with a game, is like, what are the objectives? What is the actual gameplay, right? And the Season 4 update adds some content that we didn't have before with the water and the boats and stuff, but the gameplay is still pretty much exactly the same. So that complaint of mine exists still. I do think that the game is still overwhelmingly generic, but it is fun, There is fun to be had. So, yeah. And also, I took like a really long break from playing the game, especially because I was working on that video for the other channel. So, prior to like a couple of weeks ago, when I started playing Battlefield 6 again, it had been like months, probably like 3 to 4 months since I had last played it. I just started playing it again in like the tail end of June, maybe even like early July. And before that, I think the last time I had played it was in like February. So how many ever months? March, April, May, June, 3 to 4 months that I just wasn't playing the game. So when you come back to it, it's like you kind of rediscovering it again, it kind of makes it a bit more fun. When you're just doing the same thing over and over again, it does get old pretty quickly. So I am enjoying the game from that perspective, but it is still, I still have problems with it, obviously. But as far as the Season 4 update goes, I do like a lot of the things that they added. The new map is probably the best map in the game right now. The problem with that is that if you enjoy the new map, you only have the new map to enjoy, right? And honestly, after having played the new map, I do think it's good. And it's like I want more of that. And the fact that there are so many maps in the game that aren't it is unfortunate. So it's like if you want that experience that this map provides, it's the only map that you have to play. And that is unfortunate. But, you know, at least we have it, right? I would say the map design is probably Battlefield and DICE's like longest running like weak point, right? I feel like DICE has never been good at map design, level design, whatever you want to call it. Of all of the Battlefield games, like you can very easily point to that as being like the weakest element. And Battlefield 6 is no exception to that. I would say if you're really into like the close quarters, you know, very hectic type of maps, the Battlefield 6 delivers. And I would say that the maps of that style are generally pretty good within Battlefield 6. But the biggest thing that I've realized with the release of this newest map is that I'm not as big into that as I maybe thought I was. And now that I've kind of gotten a taste of this larger map that's much slower paced, it just has like completely different, like the way you can play the new map is very different from the ways that you can play the existing maps. And I like the ways that you can play the new map much more than the existing map. So the fact that you can't play the older maps really in that same way is unfortunate. But again, it's nice that we have it. The new guns are cool. The boats, the rib boat was already in the game. It was just in RedSec. There just wasn't a map in multiplayer that had water, so there was no reason to have it on any of the maps in the multiplayer. But the rib boat's cool. It's pretty weak, but it's a rib boat. That's really all it's like the Jeep equivalent of a water vehicle, right? So, but yeah, it's cool. I like it. It'd be nice if it had more seats, I guess. It's interesting when it's full, you know, you have your driver in the middle on the wheel, and then you have the gunner on the front with the 50 cal. And then you've got one person like to the left of the driver and then one person to the right of the gunner. But then there's like two empty spots that it seems like there could very easily be two additional seats that you just mirror the seats that already exist. But they don't. It's only seats 4, which is fine. At least it seats a full squad, which is a complaint I have with the other boats, the other boat that they added, the patrol boat or whatever. It only seats 2 people. I don't know what it is with DICE and making vehicles that can't like contain a full squad. The main battle tanks can't contain a full squad in Battlefield 6, which is annoying. It's like, why not just, you know that, like, you made the game. You know that squads are comprised of 4 people. Why not just make all of the vehicles contain at least 4 people, even if it isn't realistic, right? Like, I get it. Like, a main battle tank might not have a crew of 4 in the modern era. I think they did, like in World War II and stuff, but maybe not so much anymore. But even if that's not the case, who cares? Realism be damned. It would just be fun to be able to play more closely with your squad. I will say that one of my other big complaints of Battlefield 6 is that they don't seem to prioritize teamwork all that much, which is a bit of a shame. Specifically like squad play teamwork, where like you're working very closely with your squad specifically. Obviously you can do it, but not very many people do, and the game doesn't really reward it at all, so there isn't much of a reason to do that. And I think that's a shame, because teamwork is super cool. It's like one of the best things about being a human being is that you have the ability to like work with other human beings, and that's what makes us special. I mean, obviously other animals teamwork as well, but not quite on the same scale or like the same depth as a human being, right? That's why we've advanced to such an awesome civilization compared to any other animal, is because we were able to come together and do things together that we could never have done apart. So teamwork's just cool, and I wish they would play into that a bit more. The weapons are cool. I mean, my brother wants to see more, not outlandish, but just more unique. That's the word I was looking for. Unique weapons. And I would agree. I would like to see more unique weapons. He's talked about them adding like a bolt, or not a bolt action, a lever action rifle. That would be cool. And I agree. That would be cool. And just like different types of weapons that perform in entirely unique ways would be nice to see, because a lot of the weapons do feel very similar. And that also plays into like how they balance the weapons, which I'm not a huge fan of. The Battlefield 6 has like a caliber based damage model, so all of the weapons that are 5.56 do the same exact amount of damage and all that stuff. And I actually don't have that much problem with that. But on top of them all doing the same damage, they also all have the exact same damage drop off points and everything. So I think that's pretty lame. I think you could very easily have all of the 5.56 guns do the same damage, but then, depending on the rate of fire, for instance, you could have certain weapons have like a more extended damage range. So like they carry their damage further, but they still have the like same starting and the same maximum and minimum damage. I think that would be pretty easy to do. And they don't do that, which is a bit of a shame, because it makes all of the weapons feel pretty much the same. And it also makes it to where if a weapon just has a faster rate of fire, it's just 100% better in pretty much every imaginable way. Obviously with spread, that kind of changes. Some of the weapons have more spread than others. But the way they handle spread is also just not perfect, in my opinion. Specifically with the different weapon categories. So for instance, like the SMGs are very accurate. They have very little spread, which feels very strange. Like I think the reason they do it that way is because the SMGs lose their damage more quickly. So at range, they're doing less damage per shot. I guess in their mind, they're thinking that because they're doing less damage per shot, having them be more accurate kind of evens it out, right? Because they have to hit more shots, so having a more accurate weapon allows you to do that. It kind of balances everything out. I get that from a certain standpoint, and I do think that all of the weapon categories should be viable in some way, especially considering that Battlefield is generally a larger scale game. So, if the SMGs were only good up close, nobody would really use them, because there are plenty of instances where you're coming across enemies at range, and if the assault rifles are allowed to be good up close and at distance, then, why shouldn't the SMGs also be allowed to do that? It just gives you more variety. And I agree with that, but at the same time, it just doesn't feel intuitive at all for the SMGs, which are generally supposed to be good up close and not nearly as good at range as, like an assault rifle. It's weird for the assault rifles to have like a ton of spread. Certain assault rifles just have ridiculous amounts of spread where like by the third or fourth shot, it feels like the bullets are just whizzing way off target. And then the SMGs can just be laser beams, they have no spread whatsoever. That just feels weird, and I am not a huge fan of that. I would also say that just in general, the spread in Battlefield 6 kicks in way too quickly. I didn't actually realize that this was like a thing until I was watching someone else's video about Battlefield 6 talking about spread, and they were showing examples of Battlefield 4 versus Battlefield 6. And I'm not one of those people that thinks that Battlefield 4 is better than Battlefield 6 in every imaginable way, and they should have just copy-pasted the game. No. I like things that are novel and new. If anything, I think Battlefield 6's biggest shortcoming is that it's too similar to Battlefield 4, but that's a discussion for a different time. Anyway, in that video, they showed that like in Battlefield 4, there was considerable spread, and I think that's 100% needed. Like, you absolutely need spread. I want spread in the game, but they demonstrated that the spread doesn't really start kicking in to a noticeable degree until like, maybe shot like 8 or so, around there. It ramps up much more quickly, but it takes longer to get there, right? It's like more of an exponential increase in spread in Battlefield 4, whereas with Battlefield 6, it feels much more linear, where it almost starts kicking in right away. So by like shot 3 or 4, you can already have shots that are going way off target. And the big thing that the Battlefield 4 system allows you to do is if your initial aim is on point, you kind of don't have to worry that much about spread. It rewards that like instantaneous snap aim, whereas in Battlefield 6, there's a lot of times where your aim is pretty much perfect. Like you couldn't have aimed better. If my aim is on point, I can't get it more on point, like I did everything that I could, and the game is just like, nah, sorry. This bullet's going to go way off target and you're going to lose this gunfight. So that doesn't feel too good, in my opinion. And I would be interested to see how the game would play if it had spread that took a little longer to kick in, but maybe even had like a higher total maximum possible spread, see how that worked. I would be interested to see how that plays, but yeah. I would say this didn't come with the Season 4 update, but just in terms of things that have changed recently, as I understand it. Again, like I said, I took a few months off, so I'm not exactly sure when this happened. But at some point, they added limb multipliers, meaning that you do less damage to arms and legs and that sort of thing than you do to the torso and the head. That has been the worst change ever. I absolutely despise that change. I saw a lot of people like begging for this pretty early on in the game's life cycle, honestly. A lot of people were like, the game should have limb multipliers. It's just, and I think the motivations for wanting limb multipliers in Battlefield 6 from the part of the community that wanted it was that they felt like they were dying too quickly. I think that was the motivation, was that they just wanted the time to kill to be a little bit slower. And so I guess they saw limb multipliers as a way to do that. And I think that is probably the worst possible like solution to the problem of time to kill. Now, to be completely honest, I had absolutely zero issue with the time to kill in Battlefield 6 before they added the limb multipliers. In fact, I thought it was pretty much perfect. A lot of the guns kill in 4 shots, and obviously depending on rate of fire, that's going to mean a different time to kill. But I think 4 shots to kill is the sweet spot in terms of, bullets to kill. I think that's an area that, it feels fast, and it makes the guns feel powerful, because you have games like Apex Legends where it takes like 15 shots to kill, and that just feels terrible in my opinion, because the guns feel like they have no power. So in terms of, like the power and the sensation of actually playing the game, I think 4 shots to kill is quite good. And that really only applied up close anyway. A lot of the guns fall off to like 5 or 6 shots to kill at range. So you weren't even really doing 4 shots to kill most of the time anyway. I mean, there are plenty of close quarters encounters in Battlefield 6, especially considering that most of the maps are rather small. So, there were plenty of times when you were doing, getting max damage, 4 shots to kill. But again, even at that maximum possible time to kill, or I guess, minimum time to kill, I thought it was great. I never had any issue with it. The problem with the limb multipliers now that they've added them is that the gunplay feels so inconsistent. It was so consistent and perfect before. You would shoot at a guy and you would know, like, all right, he's either going to be dead or he's not, based on like how I prefer. Like, I could anticipate the outcome of a fight before it had really ended, in a way, because it was just so consistent. This gun kills in 4 shots and I've shot him 4 times. That man is dead. It's like, I can work with that. Now it's just not that way. There is no consistency anymore. Sometimes it'll take an extra shot to kill. And again, because of spread, it's like, it's not even really my fault. Like, how could I have aimed any better? I was on target, right? Like, it's not my fault that a shot veered off and hit him in the arm instead of the torso. It's like, that's not on me. That's just the game. That's just luck. It's RNG. I do not like the limb multipliers at all. And again, I just don't even really consider it to be that good of a solution to the problem of time to kill, if you even thought that that was a problem in the first place. I get it. Some people don't like fast time to kill, and Battlefield 6 has a very fast time to kill. So if you don't like that, I understand that you won't like that. But if your goal is to make the time to kill a little longer, limb multipliers is not the way to do it. Just decrease the damage on the weapons. I would have much rather have had them just do a damage pass on all of the weapons and made them take one more shot to kill, which is effectively what the limb multipliers do, but it's inconsistent, right? Sometimes you will still kill in 4. So it's like, have you even really accomplished anything at all? If your goal was to want a game that had, a longer time to kill, even by just a little bit, you really haven't accomplished it, because you can still very easily be killed in the same number of shots that you could before. All you've done is just make it completely random. Sometimes you will die in that amount of shots, and sometimes you won't. And it just feels so horrendous. Like, I really don't understand how anyone could have wanted this in the first place. And to be fair, I never wanted it. Even before it had been added, like I said, I had seen people talking about, I want limb multipliers. And it's like, I knew from back then that was a terrible idea, because that's just, that's awful. Even in a game like Call of Duty, it sucks. I never liked it there either. But at least in Call of Duty, those guns are perfectly accurate, right? The bullets always go where you're aiming. So if you have good aim, it's all on you at that point, right? But Battlefield doesn't have that. It has spread. So the bullets don't go where you're aiming, and you can just lose gunfights because of complete randomness, and that just doesn't feel good. I mean, the game already had that to a degree, which is kind of the whole point of spread in the first place, is that it makes you miss shots. The only thing now is that even if you hit a shot, you still might take an extra shot to kill because of the limb multiplier. I don't know. I just don't like that. Also, the number of times now, thanks to limb multipliers, that a person will, you'll lose a gunfight and it tells you how much health the person that you were fighting has. The number of times where that person will have like 1 health, 2 health, 3 health, something just like the tiniest bit of health. The number of times that happens now after the limb multiplier update is astronomical. It basically never happened before, because if you didn't get that last shot to kill, you're talking about 25, 20, maybe even like 33 damage required to get that kill. So they would have been left with 25 health, 20 health, 33 health. And to me, just from like a psychological perspective, it's just like, that feels much better. It's like, I didn't even get them close, right? Like, it's like, yeah, I can accept that. But when a person has 1 health left, and it's like, son of a goddamn bitch, what the fuck is that? It's just the most like psychologically infuriating thing to see a person have 1 health left. And that happens all the time now. Like I said, it basically never happened, because it really couldn't happen before, because all of the weapons had consistent damage, and the intervals of damage were consistent. So at minimum, you're talking about maybe getting a person down to like 16 health. And that's still within the range of like acceptable to me. Like, okay, fine. I lost that gunfight fair and square. But like anything less than like 10, anything less than 5 health is just like, ooh, that hurts. When you lose that gunfight and you see that, and you're like, in the back of your mind, you're going, that guy just got lucky. He got lucky because the spread made me die. Or he got lucky because, a month ago that would have been a kill and I would have walked away from this fight, alive. That hurts. That kind of sucks. So I hate that. But that didn't really come with the Season 4 update, technically. I think that came a bit before. So doesn't really count as something negative for this update. Like I said, generally speaking, I think the Season 4 update in and of itself is pretty good. I guess I can talk a bit about the boats, specifically the patrol boat. I already talked about how I don't like that it only has 2 seats, and I don't like that. I think it should have 4. Even if the other 2 seats don't do anything at all, like they could literally just be sitting on the boat. That would still be preferable to just not having the seats at all. Obviously, you can stand on the boat, and that kind of works, although sometimes you'll just kind of get like physicsed off the boat. The standing on the vehicles but not being in the vehicles isn't as consistent in Battlefield 6 as it is in like Warzone or Call of Duty. In Warzone and Call of Duty, if you're standing on a vehicle, you're like glued to that vehicle. You may as well be in a seat of that vehicle, because you will never, ever fall off of that vehicle. Honestly, I kind of like the way that Battlefield handles it, where you can be knocked off through physics and stuff like that. If the car is moving quickly and then suddenly stops, you will be thrown off of it because you maintain that momentum. I like the way that works, but it does mean that in the instances where you are riding a vehicle but not actually in it, you can very easily be tossed from it. So the fact that you can stand on the patrol boat, and effectively it can carry, I suppose an unlimited number of people, it doesn't really count because, especially considering the waves and everything, you can very easily be tossed off of it. So I think they should just add a couple extra seats. Like, why not, But talking about the boat itself, like how it performs, it is pretty lackluster, honestly. The main cannon is pretty good, I would say. Like, the driver's seat cannon is pretty cool. The mortar seat cannon, I don't think I've ever been killed by it. I don't think I've ever seen anyone get a kill with it. I've never gotten a kill with it. And granted, I haven't put that much time into playing as the boat. But the mortar seat seems pretty garbage, if I'm being completely honest. It does not seem very good. The driver's seat is cool, though. I think it would have been interesting if they had made the boat like more modular. So like currently, I guess we should just be thankful that it has a loadout at all, because the jets and like the transport helicopter and the Jeeps, none of those have any loadouts at all, right? You cannot modify those at all. So I guess at least the patrol boat has some amount of customization. But I still think it would have been cooler if, like, because currently you can change the type of ammo that the mortar seat can use, right? That's the customization of the secondary seat. I think it would have been way cooler if you could just change out the weapon system entirely. So it could have the mortar, or maybe it could have like a tow missile, It's just like you just replace that cannon section and you just put a stationary tow mounted to the boat, and then the person is just standing there manning the tow missile. Or like a 50 cal or a minigun, or anything like that. I think that would have been cooler, honestly. Just because, yeah. I guess that kind of stems from the fact that the mortar sucks ass. If the mortar was really, really good, then maybe it wouldn't matter, because it'd just be like everybody's going to use the mortar anyway. But I still think having the option is cool, and it allows players to do whatever they want, which is nice. I do feel like the vehicles in Battlefield 6 suffer from a lack of creativity in the terms of their design. And this is something me and my brother have talked about also, where it's like a lot of the vehicles just don't have a lot of customization. They don't have a lot of like unique things that they can do, which is a bit of a shame. I would like to see more done there. I don't expect anything to be done in that regard, unfortunately, but it would be nice to see. Being able to use different weapon systems, like putting a tow missile on the Jeep, or like an anti-air cannon on the Jeep. Nothing as powerful as the actual anti-air tank, but just something that, I guess it could be like a minigun, and that would work somewhat effectively at shooting aerial vehicles, more so than the 50 cal machine gun that comes standard, right? Just giving players more options. That's all I would really want to see, right? The vehicles are pretty lackluster in Battlefield 6. I really don't like the direction they've taken most of the vehicles, especially after some recent updates. I completely forgot about this. The auto repair on the vehicles is insane now. I don't know when they changed this. Like I said, I've been away for a few months, but at some point they changed how quickly vehicles will like auto heal after having taken damage, and it is so fast. Like, if you don't completely blindside a vehicle and just like kill it instantaneously, good luck killing it at all, right? Like, all it has to do is back away for like 5 seconds, and it regenerates to full HP like instantly. It's like, what? Honestly, it kind of feels like the vehicles regenerate health now as quickly as the infantry do. I know that's not technically the case, but in a lot of instances, it feels like that's the case. It's completely insane. Interestingly, at the same time, it seems like they've significantly reduced the effectiveness of manually repairing a vehicle. There have been lots of times where I, as an engineer, will be repairing a friendly tank, as it's in like combat or whatever, and it just feels like I'm doing nothing. Like the repair rate of the engineer at the launch of the game was rather fast. To the point where, like, if you had 2 people dedicated to repairing your vehicle, it would basically never die, right? And I guess maybe that was their motivation for reducing that effectiveness, was that in those instances, it was like there was really not much you could do. But I mean, isn't that kind of the point of teamwork? Again, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about, where like Battlefield 6 just does not really reward teamwork. And this is one instance where they have very intentionally decreased the effectiveness of teamwork, because before it was really, really powerful. And now it feels like nothing. Like you could have like 3 people repairing a tank, and, if it's in a fight with another tank, kind of doesn't matter, right? Like it feels like you're accomplishing pretty much nothing. The repair rate is just so slow. So it's so weird to me that they've gone that route where the auto heal is super fast. Like you don't need an engineer anymore. And then even if you have an engineer, it doesn't make a big difference. I feel like it should be the complete opposite. The auto repair should be very slow, and then the engineer heal should be very fast to reward people for doing that and to incentivize people to do that. Again, at the launch of the game, it worked in that way, where if you had a couple people repairing a vehicle, it almost became kind of invincible. And I understand the frustration of like fighting against that, especially if it's like a tank versus tank fight and, they're just facing off against each other and you've got 2 engineers in the back that you like can't do anything about. That is frustrating. I won't deny that. But again, that's kind of the point. Like that team should be rewarded for working together. And there's nothing saying that you couldn't also employ that strategy yourself, right? Like if your team has decided not to do that, then that's on you, right? Like, and I get that that's not really on the tank player themselves. Like they can't control what their teammates are going to do. So if they just don't have anyone repairing them and the enemy team does, then, obviously you're just at a massive disadvantage. But again, isn't that kind of the point? I mean, like if we're going to, like, what is the end goal here, right? Like nobody can ever win or lose because that's unfair, right? I don't know. It just seems silly to me. So I really don't like the auto repair on the vehicles. It's just so insanely fast now. And they've also decreased the effectiveness of like mines and things, which, I mean, the number of nerfs that they've given to mines is insane. That's kind of been the focus of my other channel, just talking about the mines, because I like mines. I think they're a fun strategy to employ. And it's very clear that Battlefield 6 and the devs of Battlefield 6 hate mines. I'm honestly surprised that they even bothered to leave them in the game at this point, because they are trash. At the launch of the game, they were really good. Honestly, I don't even actually know that I would say that they were really good. They were just competent. They were like a legitimate strategy you could employ. If you wanted to use mines, you could do it, and you would get kills. It would happen. Nowadays, you cannot get kills with the mines. It is a rare occurrence. There are so many things that can detect mines now. The mines themselves do significantly less damage than they used to. They don't even trigger on certain vehicles, which honestly is a change I'm not super opposed to. A lot of the kills you would get on mines, around the release of the game, were on Jeeps, because people would hop in a Jeep and they were just trying to get into battle as quickly as possible. And I get that in that instance, you're not really paying attention to the mines as much, and you don't really want to have to pay attention to that because that slows you down, right? So the fact that the Jeeps and the quad bikes don't trigger mines anymore is honestly a change that I'm not super opposed to. But I think if they're going to do it that way, where those vehicles just don't trigger the mines at all, then I think they should have left the mine damage where it is, or where it was, where it used to do like 800 damage per mine. Nowadays, I don't even know what it is, but it feels like it's like 200 damage per mine. I mean, it is just so low. they're just, you can't use mines anymore. And that's a shame because, again, that's just like another play style that they've kind of gotten rid of. Like you could do that and it was variety, right? If you wanted to go that route, you could do that and you could have fun in that way. And now you really can't. So that's a bit of a shame. But again, that wasn't an update with season 4. That came quite a while ago. And they have incrementally made mines worse and worse and worse and worse over time. So that's just kind of an ongoing thing. Their war against mines. They really hate mines. And it's so funny, too, that they hate mines as much as they do, because it's like, if you die to a mine, that's on you, right? Like, if someone sneaks up behind you and shoots you with an RPG, like, there's not much you could have done about that unless you knew they were there. But there are plenty of times when, like, you can get snuck up on, and that's just out of your control. Obviously, once they hit you and you're aware of where they are, then you can kind of do something about it. But at that point, maybe it's a little too late, depending on, like, how many people are attacking you. But the thing about mines is that they can't sneak up on you. They're just sitting there. You can see them clear as day, right? So it's like the fact that they're so against the mines and they're so, like, hesitant to make them strong is really funny to me, because it's like they're never strong. You could make it an instant kill and a good competent player will never die to them because you can see them. Like, if you die to a mine, that's on you. That's all I'm trying to say, is it was 100% your fault. A mine can't sneak up on you. It can't be invisible, right? Like, if you die to a mine, that's your own fault. And so I think because of that, they should be strong, because avoiding them is very simple. You just look out for mines and you don't run over them. That's all it takes. I feel like as a person, I mean, to be fair, I don't play as vehicles that much, but when I do, I've pretty much never died to mines because they're pretty easy to see. And that was before, when they were actually fairly competent as an item in the game, as a strategy. I still didn't die to mines because they're there and you can see them. So I don't know, just kind of annoying on that front that they've continually made the mines worse. But yeah, season 4 is pretty good. I like the map a lot, especially like visually. It's very unique and I like that a lot. And also, and this has kind of been a trend with a lot of the maps that they've been adding lately, but it has a very minimal, if not even really just non-existent color grade to it, where a lot of the launch maps had this really atrocious, like heavy cinematic color grade. And that's great for movies, but this is a video game and it's a completely different entertainment medium. And I think it has no place in this game. I would really prefer for all of the maps to have a just neutral, naturalistic color grade where it just looks like you're seeing it with your own eyes, rather than it like being this color graded film of a game, right? And like I said, I feel like they've kind of toned that down with a lot of these newer maps, because I think a lot of people have complained about it, and I would really love for them to go back and change the launch maps, because they still have their really atrocious color grades. But points where it's worth, I guess, the new map, Sewer Reef or whatever, it does not have an atrocious color grade. It has a very natural looking, plain, vibrant color grade. And I prefer that much more. But also, just like I said, visually speaking, the biome that it takes place in and the geography of the map is all very unique. It's all very different than the other maps that are in the game. And so I like it for that reason. It adds variety. It makes the game a little more unique when you're playing on that map. And that feels nice. It feels new, it feels fresh, and that's nice. So yeah, I really like the map. And the weapons are cool. The EF88, the F90 AUG variant, that's cool. The Bren 3, which they call the Broad 3, is cool. Which it actually, I really like the Broad 3 because I wanted them to add the MCX and then also the MCX Rattler. And the Broad 3 is basically both of them in one. Technically, it's, its own unique proprietary platform as the Bren 3. But it basically looks like an MCX, And then with the short barrel, it becomes a Rattler. So it's basically both of those in one. So I am happy to see that. It basically fulfills those two requests that I had in one thing. So that's cool. And then the VSSM ASVAL, whatever you want to call it, is interesting. I mean, in full auto, it is pretty good, and it is fun to use, and I like that it's in the game. But I'm really perplexed as to why they made it a DMR. It just isn't a DMR at all. So I do think they should change that into the carbine category. But otherwise, yeah, the guns are cool. A lot of the skins in this update are really cool, I will say. And that's something that they've kind of slowly gotten better with. Like Season 1 had a lot of really atrocious skins, and they've slowly gotten better and better. In this season, honestly, I don't know that I've seen any skin that's like completely horrendous. When it comes to any skin, there's always going to be some level of like subjective bias, like, oh, I just don't think that looks all that great, right? I think some of the early skins that they released for Battlefield 6 were very objectively horrendous, even just from like a stylistic standpoint. Like, even if you're not into military stuff and the military aesthetic, like just the way they designed it is just like, that's just plain ugly. Like, even if I didn't care about that sort of thing, I could say that that's just plain ugly. I think there were plenty of those. And that, you know, that kind of remains true. There are plenty of skins in Season 4 where it's just like, I mean, it's kind of ugly. But at the very least, they all seem like relatively militaristically themed. So they feel applicable and grounded within the, you know, visual representation of the game, which I am in favor of. So that's good there. That doesn't matter too much, but all things being equal, I would rather have it that way than not have it that way. So I'm glad that it is that way. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Season 4. Like I said, I have been enjoying the game. The limb multipliers do make the gunplay significantly worse, in my opinion, and that sucks, but what can you do, right? I doubt that they're going to revert that change. I really wish they would. If they did, that would be awesome, but I doubt they will. But other than that, I mean, yeah, the game is, like I said, it's very generic, but especially after having come back from a pretty long break of playing it, I am enjoying it, so not too bad. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this ramble, but thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later. Bye.